In 1973, Burt Reynolds starred in a feature film called White Lightning. He played the main character of Robert Gator McCluskey. The screenplay was written by William Norton, and the film was directed by Joseph Sargent. There was a great supporting cast, which included Jennifer Billingsley, Ned Beatty, Bo Hopkins, R.G. Armstrong, and Diane Ladd. Gator McCluskey was a true hero of the South. And this 1973 good old boy movie is not really what you would expect from just looking at the poster. It's a really surprisingly dark and thoughtful movie. And Burt Reynolds is really pushed in his acting ability, and he performs admirably at it. The movie opens with Sheriff J.C. Connors, played by Ned Beatty, and his deputy towing another boat out into the swamp with two young men gagged and tied to it. The sheriff takes out a shotgun and blows a hole in the boat and then coldly watches as it sinks. Later on, we find out that one of those young men in the boat was Donnie McCluskey, who was a college boy who made the mistake of coming to Bogan County to protest the Vietnam War. Now, this villain that Ned Beatty plays, the Sheriff J.C. Connors, is really based on a real-life sheriff in Arkansas named Sheriff Marlin Hawkins. He was a sheriff that served in Conway County, Arkansas, for 38 years. His ability to deliver votes to statewide and national candidates gave him a high profile in state politics that was rare as a county official. This guy had a lot of power. His political machine is an important part of Arkansas political lore, and the effects of his political contacts are still evident in Conway County today. After the boat scene, the movie cuts to Bobby Gator McCluskey, played by Burt Reynolds, who is currently serving time in an Arkansas prison for moonshine running. After he learns of his brother's death at the hands of the corrupt sheriff in Bogan County, he decides that he must find out what truly happened to his brother. He attempts to escape from prison, but he's quickly recaptured. So he has to go in for Plan B, which means that he's going to offer his services to the federal government in nailing the sheriff for tax evasion by tying him to the moonshine business. What follows in the movie is an excellent portrayal of a southern town that's controlled by corrupt officials and kept down by poverty. You have to really enjoy the Burt Reynolds scenes and the car stunts involved in this show. Also the alley brawls. But you have to realize this is early Burt Reynolds, and he's showing signs of being a pretty good actor. Matter of fact, he's showing signs of being a very good actor. This is only about a year after his stellar performance in Deliverance. Ned Beatty is just remarkable playing the heavy in this film, as is Bo Hopkins, who plays fellow moonshiner Roy Boone. Now, just strictly because you aren't going to have a Southern action moonshine movie without a bit of love interest in it. So being the case, Gator is having an affair with Roy Boone's girlfriend called Lou, played by Jennifer Billingsley. And she's quite open about her desire to be with Gator. One of the really fascinating things about her is that she's not your standard Hollywood looker. She comes across being more down-to-earth and real than most of Burt's beauties that you see later on in his films. Now, I'm not saying by this statement that she's unattractive, because she really is. She's just one that didn't have to be glamored up for the part. Now, the film is just full of tension, as Gator is completely torn between being a really hated informant for the government and the thought of bringing down the man who killed his brother. He has to maintain one step ahead of this brutal sheriff the entire film, where he'll do almost anything to dispose of whoever is a threat to his power. Now, the production company Levy, Gardner, and Levine inked a deal in October of 1971 that was a 7-picture slate to do movies for United Artists over 2 years. This film was originally called McCluskey. Burt Reynolds was signed in February of 1972. Now, he had worked with this same production crew on his movie Sam Whiskey in 1969. Burt said that this was the beginning of a whole series of films that were made in the South about the South, and they were strictly for the South. He didn't care if this movie was distributed north of the Mason-Dixon line because he felt like you could make back the cost of the film just in Memphis alone. Everything else would just be gravy. He felt like this was a very well-done film and that the direction that was provided by Joe Sargent was excellent. He thought that he was great with the actors and that he was very good to work for. And without a doubt, one of the standouts is Ned Beatty, and they really had to fight like crazy to get Ned into this film. This was originally slated to be Steven Spielberg's first theatrical feature, and he spent nearly 2 months on the pre-production of the movie. He then decided that he didn't want to do the film, and he quit to do Sugarland Express from 1974. The movie used the town of Benton, Arkansas as Bogan County. There were other areas that they shot scenes around Little Rock, Arkansas. Hal Needham was in charge of the stunts, and he always does such an amazing job. He worked with Burt Reynolds on quite a few movies, such as Smokey and the Bandit, The Cannonball Run, and Stroker Ace. And later on, he went on to direct films and do some writing also. Now, his relationship with Burt Reynolds is what really inspired Quentin Tarantino in the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood from 2019, where you have the characters of Cliff Booth and Rick Dalton. Shooting for the film began July 15th, 1972. And this movie was really one of those that was kind of a breakthrough in the area of blending comedy and action. It made a lot of money, so other people began trying to do the same thing. Now, in this movie, Laura Dern makes her film debut, and she's in an uncredited role. She was just 6 years old for this brief, non-speaking walk-on part. She plays the daughter of her real-life mother, Diane Ladd, who appears in the movie as Maggie. Now, it's also interesting that Diane Ladd's last name is misspelled in the credits. They mistakenly spelled it with only one D. The car that Gator uses is a 1971 Ford LTD Galaxy 500 with a 429 engine, a 4-speed transmission, and it's really rigged for speed. They had 2 of these cars that they drove in the filming. The other one was an automatic. Now, the chase sequence that ends with Gator's car sailing from a riverbank onto a barge went terribly wrong during the shooting. The plan was for the car, driven by stuntman Hal Needham, to land squarely on the mound of soft earth in the barge. But during the take of this shot, he fell really short, and he landed on the rear of the barge with the rear of the car hanging into the water. The problem was that Needham was hurt and completely stunned. He didn't know where he was at or what was going on. Burt Reynolds was standing there watching the sequence from behind the camera. After he noticed that Needham was in trouble, he dove into the water and swam to the barge, and he helped pull Needham out of the car. Burt Reynolds' quick responses turned this possibly tragic situation into one where Needham recovered from his injuries fairly quickly. Now, this movie had your typical response from the critics. People like the New York Times called it a terribly awful movie, but you wouldn't expect anything different from them. They felt like that all the car chases were just a terrible bore to the movie. But then there was others that said that Burt Reynolds delivered a screen-commanding performance and that he was a pleasure to watch. Make sure you take the time to rewatch this movie. I think you'll find yourself completely surprised with how much fun it is to watch. Thank you so much for watching, and will continue to chase the classics.